All right, Buffalo Bills fans, welcome to this episode of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Anthony Marino. Proud to be here with you as part of the Overreaction Sports Network. And of course, each and every week, you know our show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. For those of you on the video side, a little bit of a different setup for me this week. On the road, but still committed to bringing this show to you just like we do here at the Overreaction Sports Network. And listen, while you're listening, while you're watching, make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're listening to this, wherever you get your podcasts. We've got you covered each and every day throughout the week with great shows from myself, Joe Miller, John Fina, Jerry Ostrowski, Zig Fracassi, and Dan Freddy. We got you covered with a great lineup each and every week. So listen, it is great to be here with you all once again. The Buffalo Bills looking to kind of right the ship after a horrendous loss to the Miami Dolphins last weekend, and excited to see what they can do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. As I mentioned, the show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, and let's take a look at the lines for this week's game. Right now, the Buffalo Bills in Highmark Stadium, a 5.5-point favorite. Interesting from that standpoint, right, as they meet the 6-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The weather forecast is a little bit touch and go for what it's going to be like on Sunday, even a little too early because it just feels like things have been changing so much. But the chances are it's going to be cold, it's going to be windy, and it's either going to be some sort of precipitation in the air for Sunday's game. So again, the Buffalo Bills, according to FanDuel, a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 46.5, and certainly one that is going to be interesting to see what takes place on Sunday afternoon. Now, each and every week we go through the injury report. Wow, what a laundry list of names there was earlier in the week, but things have definitely gotten better for the Buffalo Bills. Right now, only 4 players with a questionable designation heading into Sunday's game. Now, some big names on this list. Teron Johnson still listed as questionable. Going to be interested to see what can happen with him. And there's a little bit extra intrigue here because filling in for him last week was Cam Lewis, and the week before, well, Cam Lewis is listed as questionable as well. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening with the Buffalo Bills nickel cornerbacks and who might be able to play on Sunday afternoon. In addition to that, Shaq Thompson getting in some practice, showing signs of improvement, still listed as questionable. Linebacker has been an area where, Shaq's presence on the field would definitely mean a lot for the Bills in this game on Sunday. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with him and if he is able to go. We know that Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard have both been a bit hobbled, not playing kind of to the level that maybe Bills fans have expected from both of them in years past. And now we kind of take a look at things and say, okay, can Shaq Thompson get back on the field, maybe give them some 4-3 looks, maybe give somebody a spell here or there. And who knows, maybe even work his way into the starting lineup for the Buffalo Bills. Should also add 2 players already been ruled out by head coach Sean McDermott. Not really a surprise with Dalton Kincaid. With that hamstring injury, he was listed as week to week. Sean McDermott speak, if you are listed as week to week, it is safe to say that you are going to be out of this weekend's game. That was the case for Kincaid after he pulled up a little bit lame on Sunday's game against the Miami Dolphins. In addition to that, it would not be a Buffalo Bills football game if a defensive tackle was not ruled out with some sort of an injury. This week, it's Fedarian Mathis, who has already been ruled out for the Bills. So, as you look at this, I go through 6 names, and here I am saying there's a reason to be, a bit optimistic about where things are going with the Bills. But I can feel a sense of optimism. Christian Benford going to be back on the field. Great. You're going to have Daquan Jones hopefully taking another step, able to play with the team. Joey Bosa, despite the club hand that he's playing with, he's going to be okay, and he's listed as a full participant in practice. So some of these guys that have battled some of these injuries, they're working their way back, and for the Buffalo Bills, if they can get a bit healthier, maybe we'll see some signs of improvement in Sunday's matchup. Now, another guy I do want to talk about, but I'm going to do this after the read, is Khalil Shakir. No injury designation for him, even though he was wearing the red non-contact jersey earlier in the week in practice. So that is something I feel a little bit of optimism about, but we'll get back to that in one quick second, because got to remind you that all of the shows here at the Overreaction Sports Network are brought to you by our friends at Anchor Bar. Make sure you log on to anchorbar.com. You can order online, get information on all of their locations all across the country. 16 locations and 3 more that have been opening this fall. And you can find the nearest Anchor Bar location to you at anchorbar.com. This is my weekly pitch. Anyone at Anchor Bar listening to the show, we also need to add one here in Albany, New York. But listen, they've got 24 different sauces and dry rubs for you to try. Their wings, right? They're never frozen, highest quality. You can go into Anchor Bar and you can get kind of your wings done to your liking. And listen, if you're not in the mood for wings, listen, for me, if I go to Anchor Bar, I'm getting wings. But for you, maybe you're looking for something different. They've got sandwiches, they've got wraps, they've got chicken tenders, they've got boneless wings, they've got pizza, they've got beef on wick, all these different things for you to choose from. And again, log on to anchorbar.com for more details to find a location or to order online. So listen, let's get back to the game here for just a bit. I do want to talk to you about things as we're talking about with Khalil Shakir. And I'm going to be honest, I was really nervous earlier in the week. We talk about the passing game so much, and you knew Dalton Kincaid was going to be out. And then you got Khalil Shakir at practice with the red non-contact jersey for 2 days. And I'm thinking to myself, good gosh, if this passing game does not have Khalil Shakir, and if it does not have Dalton Kincaid, what is this going to look like for the Bills on Sunday afternoon? And it was kind of reminding me back to last season, that 2-game stretch where the Bills played the Baltimore Ravens and when they played the Houston Texans, and the passing game was like as atrocious as we've ever seen in the past. It was actually that 2-game stretch that led up to the trade for Amari Cooper. So I'm just happy to see that Khalil Shakir is going to be okay. I hope this was probably the team just being a little overcautious and he's not out there playing hurt and putting himself in a position to do any further damage. But with this, the Bills have traditionally been pretty conservative in these situations. Obviously, we saw it with Dalton Kincaid and his oblique injury that he was dealing with. So when I saw today that Khalil Shakir had no game day designation, I was certainly happy to see that. And when we talk about this passing offense, and we'll get to in just a little bit, Khalil Shakir is certainly the most consistent weapon that the Bills have had, at least as it relates to the wide receiver core. And without Dalton Kincaid this weekend, they are certainly going to need him to step up in a mighty big way. Now, when we talk about him stepping up, I get it. The little bubble screen passes behind the line of scrimmage, there might be a couple of those throughout the game just to get him in space and see what he can do after the catch. That's fine. But I do hope it's something that for Joe Brady, for the Buffalo Bills offense, that they look to use him a little bit more in that intermediary part of the game, like part of the field, I should say. You look at Khalil Shakir, we've seen him in the past certainly be effective, right, in that intermediary zone that I feel like has been a little bit lost for the Bills this season, right? You've got kind of the attempts that go to Keon Coleman. I was going to add some color to that, but I'm not going to at this point because, Keon Coleman is what the scouting report said he was coming into the draft. And, I feel like my expectations and maybe all of yours need to be in check just a little bit. But Khalil Shakir, we've seen this from him these last 2 years. We saw it in the time that Joe Brady has come, into the fold as the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. And it's like the bubble screens are fine, but we need to mix them in with some things down the field. And especially without Dalton Kincaid this week, I hope that we see an increased depth of target for Khalil Shakir and the Buffalo Bills pass offense. Now, another guy that has come up in a lot of conversations for the Bills this week, wide receiver Gabe Davis. And I say this as a compliment, when guys like Chris Brown and Sal Capaccio are talking about Gabe Davis and saying, hey, there's a really good chance that he's going to be pulled up and he's going to be active on Sunday. These guys, they're not like hot take artists that just throw things out there. And I'm not saying they're getting inside information or anything along those lines. But, when you work for the team, when you're so close to what's taking place on a day-to-day basis, I just don't think those are two that just throw things out there for the sake of throwing things out there. Gabe Davis, a love-hate relationship with some Bills fans. For me, I've always looked at Gabe Davis, and yeah, while there would be some inconsistency throughout the 2023 season, we saw enough performances from him where it's like, okay, Gabe has, one, a great rapport with Josh Allen. Two, he's got some of that big play ability that the team has certainly been lacking. And three, I guess this goes more back to the rapport, so I'll call it like 1A. When you talk about the rapport he has with Allen, when Josh gets out of the pocket and he's looking for someone downfield, Gabe Davis understands how to get open and how to get to the places on the field where Josh can find him for kind of some of those chunk plays that it seems like the team has been missing a little bit in recent weeks. It was interesting. Gabe Davis was doing an interview earlier, and he was saying, the guys I've learned from Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown, Cole Beasley, and, all Bills fans kind of reminiscing back to those seasons, right, when you had a wide receiver core that, you're thinking those are 5 guys that were performing at a high level. You've got, Stephon Diggs that is an all-pro. Heck, even Cole Beasley was an all-pro. John Brown getting over 1,000 yards receiving. You love what Emmanuel Sanders brought to the passing game. And again, Gabe Davis is this complementary piece, right, that can make some of those just kind of those chunk plays for the Buffalo Bills offense. So, as he's coming back, as he's healthy, I'm curious to see what can take place with Gabe. And I don't want to say I'm optimistic because honestly, I feel like that's putting the cart before the horse in this situation. Like, let's just see what can happen. Let's see what his presence can mean to the Buffalo Bills. And while it's different positions, we see kind of what Jordan Poyer brought to the team against the Kansas City Chiefs just a couple of weeks ago. And, okay, the impact that he had on someone like Cole Bishop. Maybe it's not Jordan Poyer making all the plays himself, but you saw an improvement from Bishop, an improvement from the safety position for the Buffalo Bills. And maybe, just maybe, can Gabe Davis have that kind of an impact on the wide receiver room? I certainly hope so. I know that you probably do too. And listen, we are at this point where you are you're looking for something, right? You need something to make an impact. And it hasn't been Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. It just hasn't come from these guys, right? And these are the players that they've added over these past 2 years. And I know some fans out there will probably be like, my gosh, like Brandon Beane, he's always going back to the same players. And listen, I get it. Gabe Davis, though, was 26 years old. I mean, here's a guy who was like, flirting with 1,000-yard seasons for the Bills. Certainly brings the ability to block in the run game, brings the ability that, like, yes, might not be the highest completion percentage when he is targeted. I get that part. I'm not saying that, kind of looking back to things, right, even with him being the Buffalo Bills' number 2 wide receiver, that's not a position that he was meant to be in, right? You think of his success where he could be the best for the Buffalo Bills. It's like, yeah, when you had Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, yeah, then you've got Gabe Davis as your number 3, number 4 option. That's a good fit for him. And let's see if he can kind of get back to that. And I know, even as the words are coming out of my mouth at this time, it's just like, you don't want it to sound like with a hint of desperation when it comes to the Buffalo Bills passing game, but something needs to change. Something needs to be better, and maybe Gabe Davis can be that guy to help right the ship. When you talk about righting the ship, I got to admit, like, something just seems off with Josh Allen. And I don't see off, like, you can look at the statistics, you can look at plays that he can make, you can look at him moving in the pocket. I mean, some of the plays that he made, even against the Miami Dolphins, right, just to avoid pressure, work his way to a place where he can hit Curtis Samuel for a 21-yard completion. But it looks like everything is difficult for the Buffalo Bills offense right now. And Josh Allen looks tired. And I say that, I'm really focused on the game against the Dolphins, right? But, like, that drive where you put together a 9-minute drive and then there's an interception in the end zone. A 9-minute drive is exhausting, right? And not just even in the Miami Heat, just for any NFL player, like, to get to that point, You have to be surgical with such precision to go for 9 minutes, that many plays, to work your way down the field, these small little chunks. Everything has to work for you. And then to get all the way on the footstep of the end zone and to have the interception take place, it is just like, my gosh, man, I did all of this, and this is where things ended up. And on the broadcast, right, you'd see Josh coming out of the huddle and like his chest like heaving, like breathing so hard. It was like watching me, go up a flight of stairs or something along those lines. But I just say that because something seems off. And I don't know if it's a disconnect with Brady. I don't know if he's being hard on himself. I don't know if he's just doing everything he can to kind of keep it together, because he is not that type of player to throw his teammates under the bus. He will never do that. You will not see that taking place. And it's just, but is he kind of wearing the weight of the franchise on his shoulders right now because things aren't clicking? Things are not clicking with the offense. And when that's the situation, it's certainly all on him. I wrote an article for Buffalo Rumblings this week. If you get a chance to go check it out, because I was watching this old episode of Ted Lasso. And there's this, scene. I love this scene, right, where Roy Kent joins the team as a coach, and you've got Jamie Tart there, and like Roy basically refuses to coach him. And Jamie's getting after him. And basically, finally, like Ted pulls them together, and it's like, listen, we got to be adults here. What is it that's going on? Can you help Jamie? And Roy's like, yeah, I can help him, but you effed him up. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, nobody saw that coming. But it was sort of this, like, and Roy goes on as Roy Kent can to basically say, like, you've sort of like reined him in so much. You've just made him this like team player. Like, he needs to score goals. He needs to get under the other team's skin. He needs to piss guys off. Josh Allen, he was voted the #1 trash talker in the NFL, right? I mean, you'd see him get out of the pile with like a swagger going on. There is something that is not clicking from that standpoint. And I get it. You might be listening and just be like, well, listen, when you're losing, you're not having that same swagger or this or that. This is being said by plenty of other people outside of me. Other content creators, members of the media, fans, like something just seems off. And I don't know what that piece is. And listen, we can talk about the wide receiver core ad nauseum. You can talk about Joe Brady and the offense. We can talk about if Brandon Beane has done enough. We can talk about Sean McDermott and the type of play that he wants. But for me, it comes down to this. You have the most talented quarterback in the NFL. In my opinion, the most talented quarterback in the NFL. And I know others will be, well, what about Lamar Jackson? Listen, you can make the argument that Josh Allen is the most talented quarterback in football. And you have him throwing passes on a regular basis, 0, 1, -1, 2 yards is your average depth of target. Something is happening. I had a buddy ask me the other day, do you think he's hurt? Like, do you think he's playing hurt and that's why this is happening? And it's like, well, no, that's not the case, right? Like, you look him out there, you see when he runs the ball, you can see that he can throw it downfield. Something is happening that I just feel like they're so far in his head with what they want this offense to be, in avoiding turnovers and being so conservative along these lines, that it's just like, let him go out and do what he does best. And if he makes a mistake, who cares? Players make mistakes all the time. But why is it that your golden retriever quarterback has to be perfect in everything that he does? I'm not saying he needs to be sugar high Josh 24/7. But there's times where it's like, okay, if he has to put on the cape, that's fine. But just let him be the player that he is. If you ever had a golden retriever, they're going to go crashing through your screen door. They're going to kick your dad in between the legs. They're going to eat a plate of burgers off the table. Like, they're going to drive you crazy sometimes. But the good far outweighs the bad. And with Josh Allen, it's just like, embrace the good. Stop trying to make things where it's like, yeah, we're just going to get 4 yards of play until we go all the way down the field and score a touchdown. Cut it out, man. Let the guy play. Do what he does best. And then I promise you, everyone will stop talking about Brian Dable. Everyone will stop talking about wide receivers, but open things up a little bit. Things are so conservative right now. It's just crazy. I've been rambling about it for too long at this point. You're probably like, Anthony, we get it. But I'm a little bit frustrated when it comes to it, and I hope Sunday's game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Buffalo Bills offense can kind of do what they do best. When you've got a team that in first down is number one in the league in rushing the ball, 63% of the time, only passing on 37%. When you have defenses basically saying, we are going to do everything we can to stop the run, and you're going to have to beat us with the pass. With Josh Allen as your quarterback, that can't be real life. That can't be real life. That can't be what's taking place when you talk about the Buffalo Bills and what this team can be. So, listen, I've been rambling enough for now. So you get me out of my normal surroundings and just kind of throws things off kilter a little bit. But listen, thank you guys for tuning in each and every week. Make sure you like, comment, make sure you subscribe. Big shout out to everybody at Anchor Bar for the support, FanDuel for the support. And again, make sure you're subscribing so you get all the great shows here at the Overreaction Sports Network. I'm proud to be here and working alongside guys like Joe Miller, John Fina, Jerry Ostrowski, Zig Fracassi, and Dan Freddy. It's a great group. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you next week. And as always, go Bills.